Welcome to Short-Term Rental Riches. We'll discuss investing in real estate, but with a specific focus on short-term rentals. Quick, actionable items to acquire, manage, and scale your portfolio. I'm your host, Tim Hubbard. Welcome back to the Short-Term Rental Riches podcast. Excited you're here again. As most of you know, I do most of these episodes by myself, but there are a lot of experts out there, and Jasper is one of them. He's our guest today. And before we get into it, I got to just let everyone know that I read Jasper's book, Get Paid for Your Pad, a long time ago before I started with my short-term rentals. So he is a veteran. He's got so much experience, and I'm really excited to have him on today. Welcome, Jasper.
What's up, Tim? Nice to see you, and always cool to to talk to a fellow podcast host.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you've got a great one, Get Paid for Your Pad. And I've listened to it a ton. Actually, you've got amazing connections, Jasper. And before we get into some of the questions and just kind of how you manage all of the information access you have and access to the information you have, can you give us just a little brief background?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I started Get Paid for Your Pad a long time ago. When I started hosting back in 2012, there was such a huge opportunity, and I felt like no one knew about this. Right. I was traveling around the world. I mean, I know you're living in Brazil. I actually used to live very close to where you are right now. And I was just traveling around the world and, renting out my one apartment in Amsterdam. And, I had a worry-free life for a while. And everyone asked me what happened? Are you retired or something? Or how do you travel around and not work? And I was like, I have my apartment on the Airbnb. And they're like, Airbnb what? What's this air thing? And then I started telling my friends, and they started doing it. And I was like, wow, this sounds like this. There's people just don't know about this. So I was like, let me share this with the world. So I wrote the book, started a podcast, and it's been so much fun. Recently, since I'm, Eric Miller, of course, my business partner, we started Mastermind in 2019. And after that, we kind of expanded, started essentially a short-term rental education company with multiple programs going on. So, now it's, and we're building a new hospitality brand on the side too, which is called FreeWild, which we're really excited about. So there's so much, there's a lot going on now. My life has definitely changed from stress-free sipping cocktails in Brazil to now just working my butt off 12 hours a day. So
that there's so much opportunity in this space still that it's hard to kind of sit still for a long time and even just relax sometimes. I'm finding myself in the same position. It's like, when I discovered your book, I didn't have any short-term rentals, put one up, and then, here we are years later. And one of the things that I think makes it hard to relax is there's just so many sources of information, right? I know you are an expert, and I've been in the industry for a long time, but it's like every day there's more resources, there's more people out there. There's what would you say? And I know you have tons of great guests on your podcast all the time. What would you say is any tips or anything for managing all that data, and who do you choose to listen to or learn from, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's a very good question, right? Because there's so much information out there. One of the reasons I started Get Paid for Your Pad was because I just couldn't find information. So I was like, let me put something out myself then. But now there's so many groups, right? There's podcasts. Obviously you have your own podcast, right? There's a lot of other people that do podcasting now as well. So I would definitely say podcasts are definitely in my opinion, one of the best, ways to get valid information. Obviously there's YouTube channels and there's Facebook groups and everything. But I find that the highest quality content is usually either on blogs or podcasts, right? So, books, blogs, and podcasts is kind of like where I get my information. I don't like to consume too much information from social media. There's some good info on YouTube to be found, but there's also a lot of kind of, content that's produced with the mindset, I think, with the goal of just attracting as much traffic as possible versus delivering valuable content. So that's my preference. I would say check out podcasts, books are always good, of course. And, what's the other thing? Yeah. Blog, good old blog posts can be really good too.
Yeah, no, that's true. Podcasts are some of my favorite. Obviously, I'm slightly biased having my own, but I didn't start this until I learned so much from other podcasts, and this was the idea behind this podcast is just short, quick, actionable ideas, and that was kind of hard for me to find in other places. But podcasts are just, a fantastic tool. I'd have to agree. It does seem like a lot of the information now is just to get you to watch it and keep watching it. A lot of times it takes a while to get to like the actual nuggets that you're looking for. And so podcasts, another source though, of information, and I think personally really good information. I want to get your take on this, but our conferences. And there was a while there where none of us were going to physical conferences, and now a lot of them are virtual, which I think can be an excellent source of information too. But what are your thoughts on short-term rental conferences and going in person?
Oh yeah, 100%. I love conferences. I think they're a good source of information, but I think most importantly, they're a very effective way to expand your personal network, right? Because you can meet somebody on Zoom. I mean, we've known each other for, what is it, like 2-3 years? We've met on Zoom many times.
A while.
Right?
I actually just sorry to interject her, but I was on your podcast a while ago. And so I went to search for it to find it. And I was thinking, man, I don't know, maybe a year ago. That was like 3 years ago. It was in December 2020. I can't believe it. The time just flies. But sorry to cut you off there. I just thought that was crazy.
No worries. But here's the thing. Like you can spend a lot of time with each other on Zoom and things like that. But at the end of the day, when you're having a drink and you get to like feel each other's energy and just really like connect, that's where you build a much stronger relationship, in my opinion. So I love conferences. The reason I haven't shown up on a lot of conferences recently is just that I'm going through a visa process for the United States, right? So I've applied for a work visa, which actually got approved, and I'm actually about to go for my interview at the embassy just a week and a half from now. But during that process, like you can't travel to the US, so they already locked out like a lot of conferences for me. And then also like living in Panama, like I live in Panama, right? Like going to, I traveled to 100 countries during my digital nomad times. And I almost felt like I was just kind of like enjoying not traveling for a while. You know I
feel you. It's nice to have a base sometimes.
Yeah. 100%. But just going back to your point, like, yes, conferences. I actually, believe it or not, I had a time where I was like putting out like little courses on Udemy, just kind of for fun, putting out some small little courses for people to buy. And I actually created a course on like how to maximize a conference visit. Because I was going back in the day, I was going to so many conferences that I kind of figured out a way to, to really maximize your time at those conferences. So, I would say if I can share just a couple of quick tips,
Yeah, please.
It's like, because here's the thing, you're at a conference and you could go to a conference and just kind of like, sit in with some presentations and like, have a couple drinks, go to a party, this and that. And then looking back, you might think like, did I really get a lot of value out of this? Right. And I've been there before where it's like one conference, I had so much value. And then the other conference, I didn't feel like I was getting any value. So I just kind of made a list of things like, okay, how do you maximize your time in a conference? And the number one best way to get value out of conference is to be one of the speakers. Oh, because then you get to connect with all the other speakers.
That is,
but then also point. Like everybody wants to connect with you because you're a speaker. So now suddenly you don't have to go around and try to get introductions or like meet people. Like everybody will just come to you. Right. So that's my secret tip. Number one is, if you can, just apply to be a speaker, or do a workshop or whatever that is, that you get a lot of value from that. And then number two is oftentimes on the conference, they have you can figure out who's coming, right? They usually have a back end where you can see like, the guest list or whatnot. So I would say like make a list of the people that you really want to meet before you arrive. Right. Because then you already know like, okay, I want to meet this person. I want to meet that person, versus just kind of showing up and then just kind of going with the flow. So
great tips. Yeah. I love conferences, and I was going to a lot for a long time, and not just in the short-term rental space, but I go to other real estate investment conferences and precious metal. And I actually went to a podcast conference last year. That was the first time going to one of those. And it's a lot of times it's like you get out of it what you put into it, right? And if you show up super tired, or you go out late, really late one night, and you're trying to soak up the information the next day, that makes it difficult. I do like now that at least a lot of these are being recorded virtually too. And so, especially some of the bigger conferences where you might not be able to like catch everything at the same time, you can go back and revisit things. But just having a good note system as well, I think, in actually reviewing the notes and stuff and taking action, you can get so much benefit from.
Yeah, 100%.
Great tips. Do you have any that I was just looking at VRMA. For those of you that don't know that are listening in, Vacation Rental Managers Association puts on, I think, a really good conference. They put on several, but they have an international one too that they do once a year. And if you go to their website, they've got to schedule all the short-term rental conferences for the year. And so I kind of went through there and I was selecting a few. So I'm going to go to that one later this year. And there's another one in Barcelona that I'm going to go to as well. At least I'm planning to. Any on your list?
Well, honestly, like my life right now is so dependent on whether I'm going to get my work visa or not.
Oh, good point.
Right. Yeah. So that's like just dictating my every move almost, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. Right. But yeah, I just can't plan anything right now. But yeah, I would love to go to, I love VMRA. I was there in 2020, I think it was, or 2019 in New Orleans, I think it was. Yeah, it's awesome. Like I would love to go to a whole bunch of them. I've been to the one in Barcelona. I've been to the one in London. It's called Host, I think. I don't know if that's still around post-COVID, but the one in Barcelona is great. I used to live in Barcelona, so it was easy for me there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't think I lived there quite as long as you, but I was there for a while too. And I did your book really sunk in for me, Jasper, because I love traveling. That's why I got into real estate. But it is nice having the home base sometimes. Would you say, it doesn't sound like you are now, but would you say in the past then that you were a digital nomad?
100%. 100%. Yeah. I had that lifestyle for, I'd say, almost a decade. As you know, I was in finance. After I quit my job, I was only one thing on my mind. It was like, I want to travel the world. And I figured I'd do it for a year, but I ended up doing it for 8 years. So yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it was a very inspiring story. It helped me with my journey. And kind of to piggyback on this digital nomad topic, you could say now, or I heard this somewhere, that, there's a different type of digital nomad now, and that's just a remote worker. right? I mean, these are professionals of all different levels that are now living that lifestyle a little more because they can. And of course, a lot of them are staying in short-term rentals, which is fabulous for us that are investing, working in that space. What's your outlook on virtual work going forward and how it relates to short-term rentals?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, well, first of all, the digital nomad trend was already there before COVID, but COVID really accelerated it, right? People learned how to use Zoom and how to work remotely and everything. So I think it accelerated a trend. But I think you're right. I think there's various ways of being a digital nomad. Like when I started, it was very much like there was a couple places in the world, and that's where everybody would go, right? The low cost environments like Medellin is a big hub, right? In Colombia, there's this place in Thailand. I'm blanking on the name now, but it's in the north of Thailand, and it like just got flooded. Chiang Mai, yeah, it got flooded with digital nomads, right? I was there in 2003 or something. And it was just a tiny little sleepy village, almost, and then 10 years later, it's massive digital nomad hub with super fast internet, and you rent an apartment for $500 a month. So you had these hubs, but now what you see is that people might just go like 2 hours away and stay in a different city for like a month, right?
Right.
So that's definitely changed a lot. So yeah, it's and I think that trend is going to continue, right? I mean, it's probably not gonna grow as fast as it's done over the last couple of years. But I think in the future, I think people will get more and more used to the idea of sharing resources. So the whole sharing economy, I think, is going to keep growing. And I think younger people also, I feel like they're more focused on experiences. They want to experience things, right? So, and I think,
totally agree.
Moving, or like a young person can probably not really imagine living in one place for like 10 years or something, right?
Yeah.
It probably seems boring to them, I think. So, I think it's going to continue this, and what's the most interesting part of that, I think, is because midterm rentals is a very interesting topic right now, right? Because more and more people are looking for like a 1 month or 2 month or 3 month stay. And, Airbnb is not really the ideal platform for that, I think. But there's no other platform that really dominates the midterm rentals, right? So that's going to be interesting. I think, like, is there going to be a player in the future that's going to dominate that market for midterm rentals?
Yeah, it's a good point, and this is kind of like I've living this life, I would say now, I happen to be able to stay in my own residences, fortunately, which is nice because they have some of the things I want, but not all the time. I actually sold my place in Colombia, and when I go back there, I'm working on another project to cater to this specific type of guest, one that wants to stay a little longer. And so I'm going to be renting an Airbnb there for probably 6 months while we build out this project. And that's just becoming more and more common. I mean, technology's made it easier, like you said, but there is Furnish Finder, right, that has really kind of put themselves in like the traveling nurse sector of midterm stays. But yeah, I wouldn't say that they're a platform that's a lot of people outside of nurses are going to find a place. So I think there is a lot of opportunity there for platforms, and also the direct booking websites too, right? Having our own booking website.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
There.
Like, I don't know how it is now, like, cause I haven't done this lifestyle for a while, but I remember that was always my biggest challenge was like, how do I find a place where I can stay for 2 months? Like I would find Airbnb is just a little pricey, and maybe that's changed now, but it's either Airbnb or where else are you going to go? Like you're going to go on local Greg list type of sites and see if you can find like a sublet or something like that. Right. Yeah. So that was always my biggest challenge. So yeah, it's really interesting to see how that's going to play out in the future.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking out loud here, but Airbnb didn't really start with a really long-term rental in mind either, right? They've focused on that a lot more recently, where they're really trying to push a lot of people in the long-term rentals. They still make a lot of money off the long-term rental reservations. And so as we see other OTAs, online travel agencies, enter into the short-term rental space that weren't traditionally there, like booking.com, for example, I would think that these other sites like booking.com and VRBO are probably going to try to cater to a midterm stay sometime in the future as well, because if they get the booking from it and more people are searching for it, that it would just make sense for them to offer those as well. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible, but it's like, like I remember booking an Airbnb for 2 months in Hong Kong, and places in Hong Kong are expensive. And so I think the total was like, I don't know, like $8,000 or something, $9,000. And unfortunately I was sharing it with somebody else. But, just the Airbnb fee on that reservation was like $2,000 or something,
Yeah.
Or $1,500 bucks. I can't remember, but it was this massive. I was just thinking like, man, I'm paying like $1,500 for, just to rent this place for 2 months. It's kind of crazy.
It's a huge chunk. I know. We'll see what happens. Maybe they'll realize that they're losing market share for some of these medium term reservations and come out with a different pricing strategy specifically for medium term stays, and hopefully lower the cost kind of for everyone. Well, gosh, so many good things to talk about, Jasper. One of them I want to bring up is that I know you work a lot with Eric now. Eric is your partner in multiple ventures, and I have the pleasure of knowing Eric as well, as I was part of your guys' group for a while there. Also a fantastic guy. I was wondering if you could share with our audience just a couple of the lessons learned working with a partner, or having just any tips. I mean, that's one of the cool things about real estate too, is we don't have to do it alone. We can partner with other people.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, I will say that I've had different partnerships in my past life because I've done different things in different industries, and I would say like finding a partner who's a really good fit is very difficult. It's very tempting to just kind of do things with somebody, because it just feels lonely doing it by yourself, and like it's hard to make decisions sometimes, right? It's like you kind of want to bounce some ideas off each other and make the best decision. So it's tempting to partner with somebody who's not really the right fit as a partner, I think. And I think that's why a lot of partnerships actually don't work out, right? I think there was actually some of our members in our mastermind were talking about this like last week or so. It's like, hey, how do you find a great partner? And one of them said like, well, there's only one thing that's true about a partnership: it's going to end, or something like that, right? And which is also fine. I mean, you could have a partnership for a certain amount of time, and then, if it doesn't work out anymore, that's fine. But I think a lot of people jump into a partnership without really understanding, what type of partner would be the best fit for me. You got to start with your weaknesses and your strengths, right? You got to really identify like, okay, what am I good at, and what am I not good at, and what does the business require to be successful? Right. And I think, I think these are not easy questions to answer. Right. It's before Eric and I partnered, like we had a long process of, I can't remember how long we were talking for years. And then we tested the waters by throwing this mastermind event back in Puerto Rico in 2019, just to see like, okay, how do we work together, and really trying to understand like, okay, what are your strengths? What are my strengths? And are they complementary? Right. Because I've partnered with somebody in the past who was exactly like me, and, that didn't work out. Right. Because you need to have opposite perspectives that kind of clash to push to the equilibrium, if you will. Right. So yeah, I'd say that's the most important thing, I think, is really consider, the weaknesses and strength of both partners, but also, are you aligned on your values? Are you aligned on the type of culture that you want to build? Are you aligned on the vision for the company too? Right? I mean, we've talked about this. Like I've had years where I was just like carefree, rent out a couple units in Airbnb and just kind of travel the world. And now Eric and I are building something that we believe can be a generational hospitality company, that people will know 100 years from now, people will live beyond us, right? That's a completely different vision, right? So, you got to be aligned on that as well. So yeah, it's not easy to find a great partner.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's challenging, right? And especially if it's something that has a never-ending timeline, for example, a generational company. You're in it till the end, right? And so definitely a lot of thought needs to go through it. Excellent tips there. And so let's see, Jasper, a lot of the economy's constantly changing, right? And you can say right now that a lot of people would say we're in recession and it's maybe not looking bright at the end of the tunnel, at least for the foreseeable future. What would you say to someone that was interested getting into the short-term rental space in today's economic environment?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think the biggest thing is, there's the economy, right? Like nobody can really predict. It's hard to predict what exactly is going to happen. Like it seems like there's definitely some slowdown on the horizon. But I think when it comes to short-term rentals, I still believe that short-term rental industry is going to grow, and there's a lot of opportunity long-term, right? Just because I see that I see the trends. There's trends that I think support short-term rentals, and the biggest thing right now, I think, is if you want to get into the space now, you got to look at it as any other business. You got to figure out who's my ideal client? What solution am I bringing to the market? How do I stand out from the competition? What's unique about me? The days that we can just literally just grab a random apartment and throw it on Airbnb and just, be booked 80%. That was the case when I started, but that's not the case anymore.
Yeah, me too.
Right? That's not the case anymore. Maybe in some markets, maybe there's exceptions, right? But but overall, I think that's not the case anymore. So, before you get into it, I think you really gotta create like what we call like a vision, or like almost like a business plan of like, hey, how are we going to do this? Like, what's our goal here, right? What type of properties do we want to rent out? Do we want to do ownership like yourself, or do we want to do management, or, rental arbitrage, which is kind of gone out of fashion now. The rental arbitrage is, proven to be a very risky model through COVID. So, but yeah, there's so many questions to be answered. And I think, before you get into it now. And the other thing I'll say is like, you got to educate yourself, because it's no longer an industry where there's so much opportunity that anybody can just kind of come in and do really well. Like you really have to educate yourself like any other sector, really,
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't start your own bakery if you don't know how to bake bread, right?
Right. Great points there. I think the one thing that always excited me about real estate and I guess makes me more comfortable is that we always have to live somewhere, right? And one of the exciting things about short-term rentals now is that people aren't just traveling in them, they're actually living in them. And so it's become a more permanent piece of the real estate industry. And I think a lot of people and big companies and venture capitalists have recognized that. And so with that has come more competition. And so the management piece and really planning out and educating ourselves, like you said, is more important than it's ever been. But I still think a lot of opportunity going forward.
Oh, for sure. And it also really depends on your goals, right? Like you and I both own, real estate that we rent out short term, right? I have my place in Cali in Colombia, for example. And, I just have a management company that takes care of it. For me, it's just a passive investment, right? I just bought it and it pays out every month. So, if that's something that you want to do, that's, that doesn't require as much, education. But if you want to build like if you have a bigger vision for, for a company that you want to build, then that's definitely required, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of our listeners are, the title of the podcast, Short-Term Rental Riches, sort of implies that like we're going to become rich from this, which we absolutely can. Of course, the word rich has a different meaning for everyone. And I want to get to that in a little bit here. But a lot of people listening to the podcast are people trying to scale their portfolios and add more units. And I know there's a ton of tools out there, but the idea was to have quick actionable ideas to help people do that. Do you have any tools or software tools, or even maybe just an idea that you've encountered recently or come across that's just a quick actionable idea that might help someone getting started or that's trying to scale their portfolio?
Yeah, I mean, I would say technology is a big thing, because as the market matures and as competition increases, like operational efficiency is going to be key, right? Especially if you want to scale, right? Yeah. When you talk to operators who are like big operators, I'm talking like 5,000 units, they're all very, very focused on operational efficiency. So I'll share one actionable tip that I got actually from Steve Schwab, who was at our mastermind. And he's the founder of Costco. I think they have 6,000 units or so. So one thing I learned from him was that when you scale, like the operational efficiencies are so important. And one of the things that he did to make his operation more efficient was he planted like an what he called an ammo box in all of his units. So it's literally a box with some tools that will allow guests to self-resolve issues, right? So for example, like the toilet's like clogged, or there's a light bulb, that's dead, right? Or the electricity go out, or whatever it is. Basically to give you guests the option of like, okay, we can send somebody, right, to help you with this, or here's instructions if you wanted to self-resolve this issue. And he was sharing that like in 80% of the cases, guests actually choose to self-resolve because they don't want to deal with somebody coming to the unit and all the friction that comes with that. And then, that's something that we're looking to implement in our business in the near future is minimizing the amount of time that when we have to send maintenance people and or cleaners or whatever to help guests with their issues. Cause that's it costs a lot of resources to do that.
Definitely. I like that. An ammo box for fixing quick issues. Yeah, you got to think, if someone clogs the toilet and there's no plunger around, that's something that could solve that issue real quickly. Although some people definitely don't want to do it themselves, but given the option, I think it's good to have an option. So just don't make sure you leave a dirty plunger right next to the toilet, because that's not a good sight for our guests, right? Good tip there. So much to learn. Well, let me ask you this, Jasper. This is again the podcast is Short-Term Rental Riches, and a lot of people associate the word rich with finances normally, being wealthy, but that is not the case for all of us. I know living a rich life for myself is just having the freedom. And that's why I got into real estate in the first place, to be able to travel, not necessarily bouncing around all the time, but just having the freedom. And so what does the word rich mean to you? And is there some way that you've enriched your lifestyle in the recent past that's not financial?
Yeah, 100%. I would say, like for me, being rich meant freedom, like you said, pretty much the same thing. I didn't need to make $1 million. I was just like, hey, if I if I have enough money to comfortably travel the world and experience this, was essentially what I wanted. I want to experience different cultures, and I lived in so many countries, and that to me was being rich. Now I think it's changed a little bit. My life has changed. I'm married. I'm building this generational company, or that's our vision, at least, with Eric. So it's like, my life has changed a lot. I'd say what rich means for me now is, it's more about like learning. Learning is a big thing for me now. I'm doing a lot of things that I'm not necessarily, that are new to me. Right. And that's really exciting. Right. So I think learning, I think personal growth, and then I think, I would say emotionally, just, doing a lot of emotional work, like meditating and breath work, and, getting 20 minutes of sunshine every day. That's a big focus for me now. It's more like health and, like physical health, but also emotional health, right? Just really taking care of the mind, because as you probably have noticed as well, like when you're building businesses, there's a lot of challenges, and that can cause anxiety, and there's uncertainty, and I got to look after my mind, because otherwise I'm driving myself crazy. So
yeah, no, great points there. Yeah, if we don't have our health, we don't really have anything, right? And
let me give you one. Let me give one actionable piece of advice. I have this thing called, it's a Whoop. Have you heard of a Whoop?
Oh,
it's the same. It's similar to the ring, the Aura ring. Familiar with that?
For monitoring sleep, or
yes. If there's one thing that I learned that helps me, makes me feel more rich, is quality sleep. Quality sleep is so important, and no one's tracking it. So I started tracking it. I have this device called a Whoop, and I can see exactly in the morning. I can see like my average heart rate, my heart rate variability, my average respiration rate, and all these other metrics that tell me like how good my sleep was. And it's crazy. It's crazy because, I might sleep 7 hours one night and 7 hours another night. But my quality would actually be, one night could be 90%, one night could be 30%. And how productive I am and how good I feel during the day is massively dependent on the quality of the sleep.
I totally. I don't know what happened yesterday, but I woke up at like 2 a.m. and my neck, like I was sleeping on the pillow wrong or something. And it just really set my day back. I mean, it still kind of hurts actually, but I know I didn't sleep that much that night. And I've got one of these Fitbits, which helps me monitor the time that I'm sleeping. I don't know how accurate it is, but looking back at it, seems to be pretty kind of on par. And yeah, if I'm, feeling a bit down, or if I'm not in a great mood, a lot of times I can go back and look at the sleep patterns, and you can see that it's not always like you said, like the same time when you think it might be, but it might be like, you missed sleep the day before or a little bit in the past, and it really does affect us a lot.
Oh, 100%. And what you find out when you start using these things is like, when I eat in the evening, right, a couple hours before I go to sleep, or drink alcohol a few hours before I go to sleep, completely messes up my sleep. Like the quality just drops. Right. So what I do now is like, I don't really do big dinners or big meals after like 5 p.m. or so. And I try not to drink any alcohol in the last 2 or 3 hours before I go to sleep. During the weekends, that's sometimes a little difficult, but yeah, it's massive. I've noticed that too. Well, gosh, awesome stuff, Jasper. I know we could talk for forever. Before we get to how people can find you, anything else you want to add? I mean, just appreciate the invite here. I think we covered some really important topics of in today's short-term rental industry. I think, we have to really set higher standards. Like, our guests are expecting higher standards from us, and we really have to be professionals in what we do. So I think that's the most important message. But at the same time, for the people that are embracing that, and are setting the standards higher, I think there is going to be a lot of opportunity, regardless of what the economy is going to do in the next few years. I think in the long term, the short-term rental industry is a great place to be.
Yeah, I agree. And you guys have a lot of fantastic information, and you guys teach all kinds of people. I've learned a ton from you since the very beginning when I read your book. So how can our audience reach out and learn from you and Eric and everything you guys have put together?
Yeah, 100%. Well, obviously there's the Get Paid for Your Pet podcast that you've been on, that people can listen to. We do 2 episodes a week. One on Monday where I kind of interview somebody. And then on Friday, Eric and I just kind of talk about what we're learning, what we're experiencing. And then, obviously getpaidforyourpet.com is where you can find lots of free information. And then if you're interested in our course, or one of the courses, you can go to overnightsuccess.io. Our main course is a 90-day accelerated program called Legends X. Where you can find more information on that is overnightsuccess.io/X. And then we do free trainings every Wednesday. And that's overnightsuccess.io/training. Every Wednesday we do a free training. Everybody can jump on, and we just, cover a topic for like an hour, Eric and myself or one of us. That's open, free for the public, for everybody to join. So
awesome. So much good stuff there. Well, you are truly an expert, Jasper. Appreciate you coming on the show. We'll make sure and get this out to all of our audience, and hopefully we can do this again in the near future and see where things are at then.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim.
Thanks, Jasper.
Want to get on the fast track to financial freedom through short-term rentals? Well, it all starts with the properties you acquire, but you want to make sure that you acquire the right properties. I want to give you my ebook that will show you how to do just that. There is no charge. It's my gift to you for being one of our subscribers. Just go to restmethods.com. That's REST methods.com.